Hey everybody, welcome back to another World of Warcraft Dragonflight beta video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the new features of the UI. This may not be a comprehensive look, but we are going to focus on a lot of the things that are like right in front of your face that you can modify here on the UI. Lots of new features have been added, and we kind of just want to look at, hey, are we still going to need add-ons? The answer to that is yes, if you're anything like me and you really like to just perfect your UI and add in some additional functionality. But I do think there are some add-ons we're no longer going to need to have, and there are also going to be some add-ons that maybe, especially for the normal person who doesn't really want to mess with add-ons, there's some additional functionality that's going to be really nice for you as well. Before we get started with the video, you guys, we are trying to fund 6 months of ad-free content here on the channel. That includes brand new beginner's guides for World of Warcraft Dragonflight. That includes add-on videos, UI videos, live streams, and additional supplemental content such as download links for weak auras, text guides, etc., to supplement all of that content as well. If you have enjoyed this channel, if you've got anything out of it in the past, if you're new here and you're excited about what I'm doing here on the channel, check out the link in the description below for the Indiegogo campaign for Dragonflight Season 1 here on the channel. We are over 2/3 of the way funded. We're almost there, and any help you guys could give is greatly appreciated. So, with that said, let's jump into the UI video. So I have my camera up here in the corner because the last time I checked, there wasn't really a whole lot we could do with what's up here. But we will take a look. I will be moving my camera around the screen just to get it out of the way of the various UI elements as we go today. Actually, I might be able, let's just move me. Oh, no, that is not what I wanted to move. It's gonna be a little weird, but we're gonna move me to the corner. So I'm kind of going to be looking this way most of the time. Okay, so I have done a cursory look. I actually recorded a video like this before and then didn't publish it because I had a lot of other stuff going on. They've done a couple updates since then, and I want to dive back in and just check it out. So when you're here on the screen, if you hit the escape button, you're going to go through and there's going to be, your standard options, right? And in your options, you've got your normal stuff here. They've kind of rearranged things, your interface. We're going to go ahead and come in and enable all of our action bars so that we can see those. There's a lot of, other stuff in here, names, nameplates, combat stuff, some different stuff that you can do in here. And there's some features that we'll talk about in a different video that aren't related to the UI, but are related to your overall gameplay experience. But for this video, we're just going to focus on the UI itself. So we do have a couple things in here. We'll also do a separate video looking at the accessibility options that have been added as well. Now, the key to all of this is you may say to yourself, okay, cool. Well, that's great. They did like some updates, right? So first off, we got a couple of things, right? We have the action bars look a little different, the boxes themselves. We've got updates for the griffins and stuff here. We have a brand new sort of like bag menu and game menu here. Let's get that flashiness off there. We also have updated character bars here, and the position of them has changed. And if we click on a target, you'll see that their position has changed as well. Their bar hasn't changed. I would anticipate them updating to this. I think it's pretty cool. I like the new version with the kind of chunkier health bar. I think that's pretty awesome. So I'd look forward to them doing that with the rest. Now, we also have a couple of other things here. If I can grab a spell. So if I start casting, you can see the cast bar is down here, and it's styled a little bit differently as well. Okay. So just a couple of things. And then we also, right below our character, we have that, you'll see that resource bar. It's got our health, and then it'll have our additional resource, which right now we are a elemental shaman. So this would fill up with maelstrom as we got maelstrom. So that's kind of what's going on here. A couple of the changes. The map, I think, is a little bit updated here as well. Like just overall, some of the textures, the iconography, things like that have been updated to look a little bit more clean, a little more minimalist and modern. Overall, I like the aesthetic of what they've done here a lot. I think it looks better out of the box, but it's not too weird. I would like to see some additional upgraded iconography in some places, like the chat window. I feel like these could have a little update, but at that point, it's kind of nitpicking, I think. So how do you mess with the UI, right? Because one of the big things here is that we're supposed to be able to do stuff with this. Well, when you hit escape, there's a new button called edit mode, and edit mode will take you in to a screen like this. And there's things I like about this for sure. One of the things I love, whether you're going to use the default add-ons or not, is there's a built-in grid now. I love this. I used to install an add-on to put a grid on the screen so that I could line things up the way that I wanted them to. But now you just come into edit mode, you hit show grid, and show grid is there. We can collapse the options and move this around so that we can get it out of the way and line everything up. So that's awesome. And then in addition to that, you can actually slide the grid spacing around, so you can adjust this based on what level of squares you want to line things up to. So that is super cool. There's a couple of modern layouts that are built in. Couple of layout presets that are built in. So you have the modern one here. Then we also have the classic one. The classic one, to my knowledge, is really just changing the location of your unit bars. So classic is putting them back up in the corner. So if you get into this and you're like, I can't stand this being here, then you're able to switch this over to classic mode, get it back to the way it is. If you look, we've got our healing surge, cast bar, and then this resource bar is there as well. Okay, so that's the difference between classic and modern. As far as I know, that's really the only difference. All right, so we go back in here, we go to edit mode. We're gonna revert back to modern. Now within here, you can create new layouts, which is cool. So you can come in and do like demo layout, and then you can save it. You can save it specifically to a character. So if you want to have things set up differently from character to character, like let's say you have a character you raid with and you want that a particular way, but then you have a character that all you do is you go out and you gather herbs and, mine ores, then you could set their UI up a different way. But if you just want this to be a generic layout that anybody can use, then you just save it as that. And then you can adjust in here. And the cool thing is you can actually share your layouts by copying them to clipboard so that you can share in like a Discord chat or something like that, or you can post your UI directly to chat so people can copy it. So if I get together, like a UI that I want to share with you guys, I can create the layouts and then I'll be able to export it and I'll be able to share it with you guys so that you can use it. So that's pretty cool. And then to import, you just hit import and you paste the text, give it a name, and then you can set it to character specific or leave it general, and then you'll be able to import it. So cool functionality there with the grid and also the layouts and the importing and exporting. So that's already pretty cool, but what's the point of this stuff if the UIs that you can come up with aren't really that interesting, right? So let's start taking a look at the various things that we can adjust here in edit mode. So we can check any of these boxes and it's going to pop those items up for us so that we can mess with them. Okay. So right now, if we're not in combat, we're not in a group or anything, this is what we see. We see our chat, we see our character bar, our action bars, we've got our map. Anything highlighted is something you can move and edit. Now, this brings up a couple of issues, I think. You can't move or change this bag layout. I probably would have been annoyed by this if it looked the way it used to, but it's so condensed and minimal. I love the way they've basically kind of done a transparent background on the icons there that you hardly even notice it. And you can actually collapse the bags down so that it only takes up that little space here. And I think that's great. I mean, I actually don't have a problem with this being where it is. You may, and if you do, you're going to have to get some kind of add-on to move it around, unless they add in the functionality to move it around before. Now, previously when I looked at this, you couldn't drag the chat box around in edit mode. You could still move it around with the old kind of functionality that was there, but you couldn't do it in here. So they've added that in. So there is potential that they'll add this in, but as of right now, nothing. Same thing with like the quest log. If you want to be able to move this around, currently you can't do that. Okay. So as we get into each of these, you can right click on them and they give you options. So left click will also give you the options. You can left click and hold to drag them around. Okay, so any click gives you the option. Left click and drag lets you move them. There's a button to revert the changes and put it back to where it was based on your layout. And then you have the options here. So for the player frame, we can actually, let's move it up a little bit. We can do cast bar underneath. Okay, so then we save, we'll come back out. We do healing surge, so now the cast bar is beneath the character portrait instead of down here in the middle. Okay, so we go back in, we can click on this, if we take it away, we hit save, we come back, and our cast bar is back under here. So depending on whether or not you have a preference on that. Now you can see there are options for the different things, but the options are limited, so you can't adjust like the width of the health bar, you can't adjust the portrait size. You can't adjust the size of the player frame itself. There's no bar to like, hey, make this bigger or smaller. And this is where I say that for people who like to have their UI a very specific way, you're going to need to still have add-ons, right? But for those of you who just want to be able to move things and customize a couple things here or there, this is really great. And I actually think for those of us who like to really have our UI set up a specific way, there's actually just a lot of nice features in here that make it really easy and convenient to where we won't need an add-on for some things. And we'll see those as we go. Okay, so that's the player frame. The chat bar, you can see this doesn't give us any options. It just lets us move it around. Okay. Our map, we can move this around. We can't resize it. We can't change the shape. We can't like change the icon style or anything like that. We can take the header, which is the location and the time and stuff up there, and we can put it underneath if we want to. But that's really the only option we have with the minimap right now. For both the unit bars and the minimap and chat, I'm probably going to install an add-on. There's a couple of minimap options that I like. I like shadowed unit frames for my unit frames, and there's a lot of options there, so I'll probably keep that. And then there's a couple chat options that I like better than the default. So as of right now, all three of these sections, I would still get an add-on. But if you're just somebody who wants to move your map over here, like, you're good to go. Okay. So then let's talk about action bars. Now the action bars are actually broken up into two different types. So you have the action bar 2, action bar 1, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Now the key here is that the action bar 1 is different than the rest of them. So if we look at action bar 3, this is going to provide us with all the options that 2, 3, 4, and 5 have. So except for this one here, all of these action bars can act the same. Okay, so here's the options we have. We can make them horizontal or we can make them vertical. Okay, so you can switch from the side style to the middle style here. We can change the number of columns all the way up to 4. Or sorry, the number of rows all the way up to 4. So we can go back and forth here and make different shapes. We can have the number of icons all the way up to 12 or all the way down to 6. Okay? And then within this, you can still change the rows. So you can have like a little 6 action bar here, whatever you want to do there. We can change the icon size. So it starts at 100% and goes down to 50. So you can have a really small action bar in there. Maybe you just want to track cooldowns or something with it. Or we can take it all the way up to 200%. So you can have giant, huge icons if you want. You can adjust the icon padding. So this is going to adjust the space in between the different icons. So the default is 2, and you can take it all the way up to 10. So if you want to have a little bit more spacing in there, you can. You can have always show buttons so that the background of the button will always be there. And I'm going to show you guys this real quick. So if we save that and we come back out, there's an action bar right here, but until we put a button in it, it's not going to show anything. So you can have it like that, where like you can only see the item if it's there. Okay. So let's go back into this one. And then we have a feature I think is super cool here, which is the bar visible. So we can actually set this bar to be visible always in combat, out of combat, or we can just make it hidden altogether so we don't see it at all. So the cool thing here is if we set this to in combat, all right, and we save it. Now, if we go and we get into combat, so let's go over here and we'll just throw some stuff at this guy. As soon as we're in combat, that icon will pop up. So that's super cool. I really like that functionality is baked in there. And I think that removes the need for a lot of the action bar add-ons that are available. Okay. So those are the options we have with this. We also have, you may be looking at these down here, we have action bar settings. This takes us into interface, the action bar settings there. Then we also have quick keybind mode. Now, quick keybind mode is cool. You hit this, and then you're in quick keybind mode. You mouse over a button and press the desired key to set that binding for that button. Canceling will remove you from quick keybind mode. Okay, and this works anywhere. So I can change this to like A, S, J, F7. Like you can just mouse over it and push the button you want it to be. So you don't have to go into keybinds, find the thing you want, like action bar 1, ability number 4. You can just hover over it and change the keybind. Super, super awesome functionality there. So we're going to cancel that out because I don't want to change my keybinds. So you could do that for all 4 of these action bars. Now, I did mention that this one is different. So action bar 1 still has the orientation. It has the rows, the number of icons, the icon size, the icon padding, but it has a couple of different features here. So if we look at this one, we have bar visible. That is not available for action bar 1. I don't know if this will change. Okay, I don't know if this will change, but as of right now, you cannot hide this action bar. So if you want your screen to be totally blank when you're not in combat, you currently can't do that. But what you can do is you can use some of these other options. You can hide the bar art. That will get rid of the griffins. Okay. And then you can also hide the scrolling, which will get rid of that little scroll there, where you can change your different action bars. And then this basically looks like every other action bar. So if you want to have a pretty clean UI for combat, what I'm actually going to recommend that you do is you switch this to like vertical, right? You could take it down to like 6 icons, you know, maybe decrease the icon size a little bit, something like that. And then you can actually take this and you could throw it over here on the side, maybe above your bags, right? And so we'll save this. And so let's go back into edit mode. Let's grab these and we're going to do visible in combat. We're going to do visible in combat, and we're going to do visible in combat, right? For all of these. We're going to hit save. So now, basically, we can have a clean UI with no action bars other than this one over here. And this one over here, you can put stuff that you want to access like when you're not in combat, right? So maybe you go in and this is where you're going to put like a profession, or you're going to put your mount over there, right? So we might go in and grab a mount, and we'll put our mount over there. Something like that. And then that way you just have kind of a small little action bar over there. It looks like it just freaked out. Look. That's a bug. It's showing the other abilities. Interesting. So Blizzard has some work to do, right? But that's kind of like, that's where my head's going if you're like, I want to have my action bars not available or not visible if I'm not in combat, because I want to just cleanly explore the land and see everything that's out there. You'll also notice that the experience bar down here, currently there's nothing you can do with it. It stays in the middle where it is, and it looks the way it is. I have experience add-ons that I prefer to use, so I'll probably be using those. And depending on how I set that up, that might cause issues with the bag stuff. I don't know, like there's a lot going on. So anyway, that is the action bars. So let's get these out of the way. And we'll look at some of the other stuff we have. So, as I mentioned, you can click stuff on and off here. So if we set target and focus, okay, you can take your target and you can move the buffs on top or on bottom. Same thing with the focus frames. You can have the buffs on top or on bottom. You can also set it to use a larger frame that's the same size as your target frame if you want. So a couple of cool options there. Your party frames, you can use raid style party frames. So this is just going to turn your party into a bar without the portrait and that kind of stuff. So you can put that in there. And then within here, we have horizontal groups if you want to set them up this way, which is pretty cool. Especially, I think, if you're like a healer, just having everybody down here in a line is kind of a cool way to do that. You can display the border if you want. You can adjust the frame width, so it starts at 72 narrow and goes all the way up to, it still says 72, but wide. So you can have a wider frame, and you can also make the frames chunkier. So I think this is really cool. Depending on the role you have in your party, I think something like this is potentially really nice to have as a healer, to just have everybody's health bar right down there below you. So you can just click on them and cast your abilities. Super cool. And then we can also pop back out and use the normal frames. Now here we have an additional option to show background, and all that does is put a nice little background behind the raid frames there, or not the raid frames, the party frames. Okay. Then we have our raid frames, and our raid frames are basically going to have the same options. They're not clicking in here, but they're going to be the same options as we saw with the party frames when we were using them as raid frames. We then have a stance bar. The stance bar is over here. So this is if you're a druid or a rogue or a warrior or something and you've got different stances. And here you can do your orientation horizontal or vertical, change the number of rows from 1 to 4, and change the icon size from 50% to 200, just like you could before. And then also you can adjust the padding as well. Okay, so pretty standard, same thing as the action bar. The pet bar is going to be the same. You do have the option in here to click always show buttons if you want. So that's an additional option there. We have the buff frame. So the buff frame is cool. You can actually move this around now. So if you don't want it up here by the map, because that's always, in my opinion, been kind of a weird place for it to be, and you want to put it under your character, or you want to put it down here and bring your character down here, you can absolutely do that. So again, you can change the orientation from horizontal to vertical. So if you want to change that, you can. You can change the way the icons wrap. So they either wrap down or they wrap up. Now, the reason you might want to change this is generally what's going to happen is when you get a new buff, it'll start here by the arrow and it'll go all the way out to the end of the buff frame, and then it'll wrap down to the next row and continue on. Well, if you wanted to have your buffs up above your character, that might look a little bit weird. So you can actually change the icon wrap to up. So it'll start here at the arrow. It'll go all the way to the end, and then it'll wrap up to the next row. So you can change it in that way to tweak it and make it better match the positioning of where you have the buffs. In addition to that, you can change the icon direction from left to right, and that's going to swap the side that the arrow is on so that it'll start from this side, go all the way to the end, and then wrap over. Again, like everything else, you can adjust the icon size, you can adjust the icon padding, and then you can also set a limit on the buffs. So if you don't want to see 32 buffs, you can set it to just show like the most recent 5, or whatever you want to put this to. So you can adjust that as well. And there's also an option to show full, which is just going to always show the full buff frame with all the buffs in it all the time. Okay. So then the debuff frame is going to be basically the same thing. So orientation, wrap, direction, size, padding, limit, and show full. All right, so then we have our boss frames. So these are going to be the, not your target when you're targeting the boss, but actual boss frames, like if there's multiple bosses and things like that in a raid. And so the couple of options that you have here is to use the cast bar on the side instead of under, if you want to. And then also you can use a larger frame if you want to make that frame bigger. Got the cast bar, which is down here under the action bar. So let's grab that. Okay. So cast bar, not a lot of options. We can increase the size from 100% to 150 if you want to make it bigger. And you can also lock it to the player frame so that as you move the player frame, the cast bar will move with you and stay there. You can also unlock it and then just drag it wherever you want as well. So even though we have a couple of options to just set the cast bar underneath here with the player frame, you can also do that through the cast bar options with lock to player frame. Okay, so a couple of options there for the cast bar. You have your encounter bar, which doesn't have any options. You can just position it wherever you want. Extra abilities, I believe this is going to be stuff like garrison abilities and things like that. You can move these around, but you can't really change anything. You have the possess bar, which is going to give you a couple options here. So you can set the orientation, you can set the number of rows. This is just 2 icons. So you can basically make it horizontal or vertical. Either way you go here. Change the icon size and the icon padding as well. Talking head. So this is a pretty exciting one, I think. This is when the talking head, it comes up, like if you're flying into a zone and a world quest pops up and the guy just starts yammering on about stuff and he's right covering all the stuff that you don't want him to cover. Well, now you can move that talking head and like shove it over here or something, wherever you want. So very nice to have. I do wish we could resize it as well though. And then we have our vehicle exit button. So this is the little exit button here, because if you move your action bars and stuff around, you may want to move this as well. Put it up over top of this one or whatever you want to do for this. So that's all the options we have in the edit mode here. I'm going to revert my changes. We're going to go back to the modern preset and pop back out. So as you can see, there's actually a lot of functionality built into the UI now. And I think this is a super positive change for people to have right out of the box, the ability to adjust that. It's great. There's obviously limitations to it. They can't add in every single feature, but there are a lot of things that I think they could do to continue to improve on this. The biggest things for me, if I had to list them out, hoping that a developer saw this and was going to make some changes and adjustments, I would say give us more options to resize, okay? Because I want to be able to, take something like the talking head and make it 50%. Or maybe someone wants to make it even bigger, right? Give us more resize options. Give us the ability to hide action bar 1. I'm not really sure if... I don't know if that's like a safety thing where they like don't want you to be able to hide all of your action bars because then they think people are going to be forgetting how to get them back or something. I just really don't see why we don't have that option with action bar 1. So I would add that in. Update the iconography and give us some options for chat. Just some different customizations and things that we could do there. Give us the ability to move and customize the experience bar, as well as the quest log and the backpack stuff here. I think even with the backpack and menu, just being able to move it. Even if you don't want to give people a bunch of options to do things with it, just being able to move it, you know, and position it somewhere else. Like if you could, like let's say you wanted to take this and you wanted to move it up to the opposite corner, being able to move it and then flip the direction, I think would be fine. That would be like good enough for a lot of people. With the XP bar, I think there should be maybe the ability to adjust the size or make it vertical or something. I'm probably still going to replace it just because I'm not crazy about the artistic style of the border, really. And then for the campaign, the quest log here, like being able to move that around. I think just being able to move it is probably going to be enough. So with all that said, like what do I think? How do I feel about all this? Like I told you, it's a good positive change. There's still just a lot of add-ons I'm probably going to have. I actually like this map. I think this map's not too bad. I may still get like a map add-on. I'll definitely get an XP bar add-on. I'll get the chat add-on. I'll get my unit frame add-ons. I'm still going to have weak auras. I'm still going to have OPI. I'm still going to have, you know, as far as I can tell, there's nothing added to update your world quest menu. So I still like to really have like a world quest add-on that I'll probably add in here. I don't know, you know, like character panes kind of look the same. Like all these windows look relatively similar. So there's a lot of stuff in here that I think I would probably still use an add-on for. And I do think a lot of people are still going to use the kind of like overhaul add-ons like LVUI and stuff like that as well. But I mean, I really commend Blizzard for their efforts on the UI customization that they've added in this time. And I think for someone like me who makes a completely custom UI from scratch, basically every single expansion, even just some of the functionality they added in this time is going to make that easier for me because I can already hide a bunch of stuff that I want to hide. So hopefully that was a good kind of comprehensive overlook of the UI stuff that's available as of right now. This is the middle of September beta patch. So if you're seeing this later on, new functionality might be added in here. I'll try to continue to cover that functionality as we go forward and the things that they add in. Also, like I said, we'll do another video looking at some of the features and the kind of accessibility updates they've done as well. So we'll get into that in a different video. So if you guys enjoyed this video, please throw a like on it. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any questions or comments. Don't forget that we are trying to fund 6 months of ad-free content here on the channel, including new beginner's guides for Dragonflight, live streams, UI and add-on videos, much like the one you've seen here, but you know, a lot more tutorials and things like that as opposed to just kind of overviews. And also supplemental content for all of that. So if you have the means and you're able to, check the link in the description below to hit up the Indiegogo campaign page for Dragonflight Season 1 here on the channel. And any help you can give is appreciated. You guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one.